Hello YouTube, I'm Jeudy, just Jeudy and the only Jeudy, and as we come to a conclusion of EV Grove, I kind of want to start experimenting with more content that isn't just the battle content. So of course I asked you guys over at the community tab and over at my Discord. There will be a Discord link down below if you're interested in joining that community. We're pretty sick, we yap, yada yada yada. We post a lot of, there's quite a few top 100 and top 1000 players in there. So it's a really great place of learning Pocket. With that aside, I asked you guys what are some of your hot takes, so I'll be reacting and giving my own kind of take with your take. So it's like you give me a hot take and I give you my take on that hot take. And without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's let you guys talk. Our first take comes from number one loser 206. The dual energy system sucks and it should stay like that. If we had the ability to choose which energy generates, that would take away the whole niche of a dual energy deck. That is a hot take. Because, I mean, you had me in the first half, right? Because I'm like, yeah, the dual energy sucks. Like, that's what the duh. But you're saying it should stay like that. And you're saying the niche of the dual energy system is it sucking, which doesn't make sense. I think that the niche of a dual energy deck is the fact that it's a dual energy deck. And I think that keeping it like generating alternate, not necessarily you choosing, is what people want. People don't necessarily want the ability for you to choose, because yes, I agree, that would be pretty busted if you can choose which energy. There should be some drawback. I think that people just want more consistency in the randomness, right? In the chaos. And the kind of the change I've always proposed is that you have one start and it just alternates between the two. And that can screw you over in certain situations, but that can also just add, because I think that up until really just like this set, a lot of dual energy decks kind of flop and they mostly suck, and a lot of them kind of try to find ways to get around having to play dual energy, right? Giratina, Lele, Gren of the age-old past were primarily psychic only, and we finally have Gren, Sylveon, Giratina is psychic water. So I think that there's nothing lost in just putting it psychic water. I think that it sucks and does need changing. It should change. The niche isn't that it sucks, the niche is that it's a dual energy deck. So that's going to be my answer to that one. Elizabeth Hayden says, this game doesn't power creep enough. That's my hot take. The last pack release had Sylveon and maybe Flareon. Building decks is boring. Changing Solgaleo to have Sylveon is easy. Darkchino is still relevant for some reason. Not enough interesting cards in every release, which is why deck building and card collecting is boring. In my opinion, every deck should have more than one or two cards in the meta, and use the Arceus Link or the combos to keep older cards relevant. I keep getting a 2-star Snorlax or a 2-star Penny, and I'm like, yay, it's such a terrible card. So I think that the game's power creep is progressing at a good pace. I think that Sylveon has actually spiked the game a lot. But my response to this is that mini sets should not progress the game that much, should not progress the meta to the point of like it being like the tier 0 broken, right? I think tier 1 broken, I think Buzzwole was great for the game. I think Sylveon creating a bunch of good decks is good. What happens when we have an overly power corrupt mini set is Triumphant Light. And if you aren't familiar with Triumphant Light, Arceus was so powerful, most decks in, shout out to Twilly and Beans, most decks in the meta were non-viable, right? In Triumphant Light, Arceus was so powerful that it kind of created this vacuum of you're either using Dialga Arceus or you're using Rampardos Lucario, and then every other deck loses to Dialga Arceus but beats Rampardos Lucario. It was an awful format, right? And then we follow that up with Shining Revelry, which is kind of again what happens when we get a card that's too power crept in Giratina, where now you are either using Dark or Giratina, or you were using a deck that in theory can beat it, but Dark Giratina had a response to everything. And that is why we should not have the power creep expand too much in mini sets. But then let's look at the meta in Celestial Guardians. If we look at the meta in Celestial Guardians, which is a main set where I think the most power creep should happen, we had so many more decks available, right? Meowscarada got Decidueye as a partner. Arceus Crobat was viable because of Rare Candy, which was an extremely freaking strong card. Garchomp Rampardos, right? Charizard Incineroar, Solgaleo Skarmory. All of these decks became a thing because of main set power creep. I don't want mini sets to power creep as much. I think that the last two mini sets were perfect. In that, I think the Ultra Beast mini set was how I want mini sets to be, where it's like an archetype specific focus. And then like have them be viable without them being oppressive, right? I think Guzzlord, Silvally, they were all viable without being oppressive. Eevee Box, it was really cool. Obviously, Sylveon became really broken. I don't want multiple Sylveon tier cards in a mini set. It's okay for mini sets to have bad cards. And 2-star Snorlax might be good in the future, right? Shining Velvet Zard sucked earlier. All we need is a card like a double colorless energy supporter. We don't know what we're going to get in the future, but I get why it feels that way. I think that you also mentioned like deck building and card collecting is boring because the game's not being power crept fast enough. I think that those are two different things. I think card collecting in general, like if you're just a collector, all there is opening packs and doing really bad wonder picks, which is honestly just boring to me in general. I think that there should be more fun ways to collect cards that we don't have. And I think the deck building has been pretty fine. It's just that this format, especially this month, has been the longest ranked format since Shining Velvery, is that these decks have been so strong and so oppressive. Hypura says, this game is built on a shoddy foundation that only gets a fresh coat of paint, expansions every month, and the stakeholders are not interested in investing more resources into creating content for players. I would love to be proven wrong, but unless the developers provide a roadmap of new features or updates, I fear that things won't get any better because it's making money with minimal investment. I think this is a fear that a lot of people have. This game is making bank. It's making stupid amounts of money that I can never imagine. But the features are kind of bare bone. I think that for the fact that trading is still like very limited, the fact that wishlist is coming kind of like months after trading has been a thing, there's been a lot of things. And I think that the events, frankly, are not good. I think that I barely want to do the solo battle events. Just to like fill the decks. It's like not fun for me. Wonder pick events are cute, but like that's all they have, and they have done away with every single PvP event now that ranked exists. I think that this game is it has like the foundation to be relevant forever. I don't think the foundation is shoddy. I think that the bare minimum that it does feel kind of awful, considering they can do so much more, right? I've been playing Shadowverse a lot. It's one of my favorite card games right now. And that game has so much off the bat. There's weekend lobby tournaments, you know, there's a tournament mode, there's like a lobby system where you can interact with players casually. There's so many features that it does, like going from that game to Pocket, feel like, damn, this is like, we can be getting so much more, and I genuinely do hope that we get so much more. Because like even like trading took a while to come, and I think that like these features and how late they respond, we will be losing players, but it doesn't really matter at the same time because it's Pokemon, and Pokemon is such a big franchise, and they're gonna make bajillion dollars. But this is one that I kind of agree with, but fingers crossed that the Pokemon Present proves me wrong. Fingers crossed. But with the Pokemon Open that's happening at the World Championships, maybe if that hits like a pretty big number, gets a lot of feedback, we'll be seeing a competitive circuit, but we'll also be seeing more changes to the game's overall experience. Sekiro says, Misty is more healthy for the game than Sylveon, from the previous #1 Misty hater, and they will go on to essentially saying, the chances of losing to a Misty turns 1 to 3 is way less likely than your opponent having Sylveon and drawing through their deck right away, because you have the drawing Eevee to help consistency, and if that guy is on the field, you can't hint this up positively because you might just red card or Mars them into Sylveon. Misty turn 1 is annoying, but I'd rather deal with that than losing because my opponent has 3 cards in their deck by turn 3. And this kind of goes with the person that asked about power creep, Elizabeth, right? Where I think that Sylveon's broken. I think Sylveon is so insane, and I think the reason why Sekiro, and also Sekiro made a video about this. If you want to watch it, I'll have it linked down below. I think it's a really well made video. I watched it. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I'm going to say that even with this, Sylveon is a byproduct of the game having only 20 cards in your deck. So that the fact that you're drawing through your deck efficiently is because of the fact that your deck is that small, right? Whereas Misty has caused water types to effectively suck. You cannot print a good early damage water type with a good late damage thing, because Misty will break it, right? I dread the day we get Kyogre. There hasn't been a good water deck to compensate because of how broken Misty is, right? And I think that we'll see that once we get a water type that really wants to use Misty. But I understand where he's coming from. I do think Sylveon's a little bit too strong and he's created Sylveon Slop, which I think is more insane than Silvally. Silvally was just like go second fest. The red card Mars thing sucks because like sometimes they'll play the entire hand, have 4 cards, you red card them, they draw Sylveon, they play the entire hand again. You're like, why did I even waste my time? Some Japanese rankers drop red card or Mars and say that they would rather just lose to the Charizard player, which is like really not good, and that's why power creep needs to be calm. Would love to see some counterplay to Sylveon, whether it's like they start creating an ability lock, whether that's a supporter, a Pokemon, or like a stadium. Time will tell, but I do understand where you're coming from. I just disagree because I think that Misty has fundamentally changed how they make water Pokemon and why the water type has sucked for so long. Sylveon is just a byproduct of the game being 20 cards, which, you know, my hot take is that the game should be more than 20 cards. Onion Return says, Dina has done an overall poor job of creating playable non-EX decks since Space-Time Smackdown. Back in the GAMI days, we used to see a lot of spicy off-meta decks. Nowadays, we receive that are not an EX are barely playable. I think this is completely false. To talk about GA Mythical Islands, the decks that were not EX that were viable were Ninetales, Blaine stuff, and Weezing, like Koga, Poison. And I think both of those decks, if you even look at tournament results, both sucked. They had like a sub 46% win rate. In the top 3, it was very clearly Mewtwo EX with Gardevoir, which is extremely playable, non-EX card. Pikachu, which had ton of non-EX partners, so I do understand where you're coming from there. And then Charizard, which was Charizard, Moltres, Arceus, Arcanine. Mythical Islands did not help this. Mythical Islands did not help this problem. It created Fighting Box, but it did not help this problem. Space-Time Smackdown gave us Rampardos, but Rampardos got stronger, not in this format, but later on in Triumphant Light. And finally, we are in like Celestial Guardians, you know what I'm talking about. That had gave us Rare Candy, which made a lot of random cards like really, really strong, but it gave us Oricorio, which has created decks on its own. Shining Revelry has also given us Miascarada, which was a really strong non-EX option. Created, obviously, was a top tier deck. Silvally in the one that was after that, right? It was also kind of insane. Silvally literally creating so many decks because of how strong it was. Rampardos again being like forever just really, really strong. And I think that like that's where I am with like I didn't even talk about Scar Mag, right? Which I guess was Space-Time Smackdown. But I think that we have gotten a lot of strong non-EXs that do different things, right? Shiinotic was really cool. It ended up becoming a really cool partner. And then we have Zeraora as well. So I think that the decks that we like to like fondly think about were never really that good to begin with, and we're mostly budget. And now we actually have decks with, you know, obviously we'd want more, right? Sweet Treats just sucked. And I'm sure we'll get more, but to say that the decks from before were more viable, especially Mythical Islands, where Mewtwo got Omega buffed, and Celebi Executor EX was stupidly strong, and Gyarados EX was stupidly strong, we are getting more stronger non-EXs that are able to make their own decks, but of course the more EXs we get, the more non-EXs are going to be harder to fight for a slot. They have to really do something, and we've seen a lot of decks recently call upon older cards to do good, right? Charizard has Flareon to deal with Oricorio, and we're starting to see some cool stuff with that. I think that a lot of the Ultra Beasts were really good non-EXs. Obviously, they formed themselves into an EX deck, but I think that the non-EXs now are way more interesting than the EXs before, and it's kind of like rose-tinted glasses. Like, you can think of Alakazam. Alakazam was an awful deck, right? Back in Genetic Apex. It didn't matter if you were able to use it. Like, the tournament results show that it was an awful deck. Build Sev says the competitive scene of this game is shallow, not when it comes to deck building, but pertaining to the skill cap on how perfect you can play. Like some geniuses couldn't pick up the game and win the vast majority of games, like something such as chess. Because the carry potential is not there, the best moves are usually fairly obvious, which I don't really like in a competitive scene. Basically, I think the game is too simple, and basically, yes, the game is simple. That is the point of the game. However, there is a lot still within the game. It can never be like something like chess because it's a card game with a lot of random elements, but it's designed this way, right? It's a 20 card deck, 3 points only. A lot of the skill comes in your deck choice and not making those mistakes, because it is like one mistake can change the game. I do think that simple games are still competitive, right? You can make just competitive scenes about so many simpler games, right? And I think that this game, from where it started, where the decks literally played themselves, to now, it's like really cool. We have a lot of different options. Charizard sucks. Charizard's the one that like still plays itself. But I think that we will get to a point where we will have more decisions to make. But that is just the nature of a 20 card game. It's really, really hard to like have the true full skill expression. Obviously, decks like Dartina kind of show off it. And I think that the game being simple is fine, right? It's like why so many of us got into this game is because it's a simple game. I love it because of how simple it is, but how strong you can get, right? And also win rates are never going to be like insanely high. Seagun is currently 8,000 points above, has a 55% win rate, which is insane for card games. So I don't know what type of win rate you're expecting, especially not chess win rate. Like chess pros are going to have, like, because it's such a skill-based game, we're going to have insanely high win rate percentages. And so, like, I think it's, like, fine. I think that it is okay for this game to be simple. I think that this game can only get more advanced as they create more cool cards and stuff, but I do think 20 cards is going to hold the game back for a while because, again, we're already seeing it with Sylveon, right, being so powerful. 11PK1111 says this app should hard limit the amount of ranked games you can play per day to like 10. No. So Pokemon Go does this, right? Pokemon Go limits the amount of ranked games you can play a day. But that's also because Pokemon Go has so many other things going for it that where they don't want you to just play competitive, right? They want you to touch grass as well. And Pokemon Pocket does not have enough content, right? Like, if you were already limiting people to how many games they can play, and I get it, that might be a solution to the fact that ranked right now is whoever plays the most. But that's how they want ranked to be. They want people to continue playing Pocket, so that's how ranked is. The real solution is just to introduce an ELO system. That's all you need to do. But they refuse to do that. And so for now, we're going to have people like Seagun, who's had over 2,000 games played. A lot of the top 4 has had over 2,000 games played. And that's fine. It's fine. Maybe making top 100 is not going to be attainable for someone like you. But there are people, several people in my Discord that are in top 1,000 and have not played as much as that. And there's a lot of people in top 10,000. And so many more people in Master Ball. You don't have to hit these higher ranks. Like, why are we limiting the amount of games you can play on ranked because some Japanese player is like 10,000 points ahead of you? Why does it matter, right? Like, I think that's like silly. I think that's like the worst thing you can do for a game like this. However, I would hope that we eventually get a way to have, you know, like an ELO system. Goat Mod says off-meta decks are just as good as meta deck, just depends on luck and matchup. I think people who think this end up losing a lot with their off-meta decks. And then they get a streak of matches where they win because their off-meta deck has a few good matchups. And this is just everyone loves to boil down everything to luck in matchups. The reason why the meta decks are the meta decks is because they have the best matchup spread over most decks, including off-meta decks, right? Like, especially when I think of off-meta decks in this context, this sounds like meme decks. If you mean weaker decks, then yeah, like I played Magnezone Sylveon in the tournament, which is an off-meta deck, a weaker deck. I wouldn't even call it off-meta, I would just call it weaker than most of the tier 1 decks because of its matchup spread, right? However, when you say off-meta decks are just as good, it's like, what does that actually mean? Are you trying to tell me that your Wug Trio deck is good if you pull specifically matchups where you flip all 3 heads into the right Pokemon and your Misty flips heads, like what, oh yeah, of course, then that maybe your off meta deck is as good as a meta deck. And I think the reason why meta decks are strong is because of, one, consistency. It's not necessarily luck when the deck is so consistent at doing what it needs to do, right? And like that's the other thing, a lot of top players are good at mitigating luck, and choosing a deck that helps you mitigate luck is why people are able to climb as high as they do. And streak with good win percentages, right? This is just like a kind of a nothing burger of a hot take, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I can get 10 million wins with my Celebi EX deck right now if I play like no Charizard, if the Charizard player bricks, right? And then why are we reducing this game to that? It's going to be a much harder time for me using Celebi compared to a player that's just using like Charizard, Sylveon, or Ninja. And I think that if you acknowledge that, it's fine, right? Some people play this game to have fun and to use their off-meta picks, right? I think Zatumi has so many cool decks that are functional, but are going to generally end up being weaker than a top-level pick. And he has videos that showcase how they work, and they are going to work, but they are going to lose a lot more than a meta deck, and that is okay. Decks are allowed to be weaker, but off-meta decks are not as good as meta decks for a reason. And we'll end with a final take from Dio858. Going first is overhated and second overrated. I'd argue they are almost essentially equal, even giving a slight edge to first in some cases. Getting Evos, Tina, and red carding first is such a huge advantage nowadays. And their hotter take is this game was more skill intensive and expressive at launch than current, including Misty, because it would have gotten phased out of meta regardless of new packs. So going first, I do think that, yes, this is a matter of meta. First versus second will always be depending on the context of the meta. And when a deck like Charizard is one of the best decks, going first is important. When a deck like Sylveon is a #1 deck, going first is extremely freaking good. But we literally just had a format where Silvally was everywhere and going second was so much more valuable. Going second, whether it was that, going second with like a Buzzwole deck, right? So like, this is like a yes and a no. It really isn't about, you know, it just depends on what deck you play and what stage of the meta you're at. And if you are, right, playing in a meta where there's a lot of advantages to going first, then yes, going first is going to be broken. Again, the hotter take, this game was more skill intensive and expressive at launch, is just false. The game played itself. Every single deck played itself. Mewtwo decks, you were basically the only skill in Mewtwo decks were if you were going to retreat or face tank with a Mewtwo to use the other Mewtwo, because Gardevoir, once you have Gardevoir, you just sweep your opponent. Charizard decks have been the same since launch. Articuno 18 trainers were also like, you just play your cards. Gyarados decks were also like, right, so this is talking launch, so I'm not going to talk Gyarados. Pikachu decks were the only decks which you could talk about had some skill in that, like, you can like run different cards and like different things. But it was like, if you went second, you just had major advantage. If you went first, you're shit out of luck. So this is not true. I think this is not true. All the decks played themselves. Like literally, like I am going to have a video with my goat Tilly, and we're playing Genetic Apex, and I'm looking through the cards right now. I'm like, all of these cards, like, there's no real skill expression in anything unless I'm using a purposefully bad deck. And like I said, most of it was like Pikachu being able to X-speed around because there was no Cyrus back then. So no, this deck, obviously Rare Candy can make it feel that way because decks just pop up for Rare Candy, but we're talking about decks like Dartina, decks like Buzzwole, decks like Guzzlord, that all exist now and today, and decks like Silver Ninja. I've been playing Lele Mag, right? These decks all have important breakpoints, important decision points that just don't exist in current Pocket, right? Even Oricorio, playing against Oricorio, using Oricorio. EV Box is another deck, Leafeon Flareon, which is a deck that has, so like your evolutions are, you know, your resource. And because of that, my thoughts is that is just completely wrong, right? Like literally go play Genetic Apex and you'll realize, wow, this meta like actually sucked. Because all the cards were meant to play themselves. There was really no thinking involved. Obviously Mewtwo had some thought with like switching to take Pikachu attacks, and Pikachu had thought in like where you're attaching, where you're switching X speeds and stuff. But no, that's just, It's just wrong. And there you have it. This has been an episode of Hot Takes. If you guys like this, I would love to bring it back at the end of every month, right? Because the meta does slow down. There's really not much to talk about. I'm currently working on a video, a Celebi retrospective, so I'm excited to get that out to you guys. I'm going to be uploading this pretty late. I think it's going to probably be up like 9:30 Eastern. And that's just because obviously tomorrow is the Pokemon Presents, which I will be streaming, but also I'm going to have to like upload a video there, and I don't want to just upload video after video after video after video. But yeah, I just want to start having fun, and if there's like even other types of content you'd like to see on this channel, I'm always airs, please feel free to message me or let me know. Other than that, this was very fun interacting with you guys. If you guys have more hot takes, put them down in the comment section below. Without that, I'm just gonna let the cards talk and yeet out.